So, what's the importance of strong passwords? What are some techniques for creating strong passwords? Uh, is, is there a tool that can help me keep track of my passwords so I don't have to remember dozens and dozens of them? And what are the options when it comes to other tools that can keep accounts safe that aren't necessarily password related? So, if you've ever set up a password, which you absolutely have, you've seen the requirements. You need a lowercase letter, a capital letter, you need a number, a special character, it needs to be, X number of characters. And that is a way of making passwords harder to crack. And when I say crack, I mean people write bots that will drive millions of options for passwords in a relatively short period of time and try and figure out your password programmatically. And the bigger the pool of characters that each digit can be, the longer it takes. And so all of those things together do make safer passwords. So I want to start by showing you a technique that you can use to make strong passwords that don't include words, because that's something that they don't typically limit you on, because that does make them easier to remember, but they are also easier to crack when you're using a word or words in your password. So let's take a look at a sign-in page that we have all seen. And this is the NetSuite sign-in. So what can we do to make a memorable password based on this page that we will absolutely see when we need to recall our password? And you'll see that I have this document here where we can actually type in the password. We can all see what we're doing here. So the idea is to create a phrase based on something on the website that you can easily see and recall the phrase and turn that into somewhat of an acronym that will be your password. So you need to be careful that you don't base it on something like this, which is a graphic that will change most likely after this happens. So we don't want to base it on something that is not permanent. So rather than basing this phrase on this, let's talk about the name Oracle and NetSuite. And maybe we could talk about the fonts or something. So let's come up with that phrase. To start, I'm going to say Oracle makes NetSuite. Right? That's pretty easy to remember when I see that. And so Oracle makes NetSuite. And what I'm doing is I'm capitalizing the letters that I would capitalize if I was writing this in a sentence, and that gives us both lowercase and capital. And let's continue. So Oracle makes NetSuite, and I like that name. I like the word Oracle. So Oracle makes NetSuite, and, excuse me, and I like that name. So you may not be able to tell, but this is a capital I, this is a lowercase l. So, and I like that name. I would capitalize the I if I was writing it in a sentence. And so now we have a pretty easy phrase to remember, but we don't have a number just yet. And it's also kind of on the short side. It is 8 characters, but it could be longer. So let's continue the phrase and say 6 digits in that name. So there are 6 digits in Oracle. So now we have a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 character password. And it's easy to remember based on this. Oracle makes NetSuite, and I like that name. 6 digits in that name. And that, I can assure you, is a tough password to crack. So, if you use this, you will have strong passwords. You will, be able to come up with something per sign-in screen And now that you have those passwords and you can remember them, let's talk about some tools that can help with that process and actually become even more secure than your 13-digit NetSuite password. And when I say that, I'm talking about password managers. They're tools, they're software, they're usually browser extensions that allow you to save your passwords, and you only need one password to sign in and have access to all your passwords. Another benefit to that is you can generate extremely long and completely random passwords with a password manager because you don't have to remember them. So you can have passwords that are 20, 30 characters long, however long you see fit. So currently, there's no password manager in the Low Medical suite of software, but there will be soon. And we'll talk more about that when the time comes. But I'd like you to know that that is a possibility and that is something that is extremely important to cyber hygiene. The last part of this module is talking about what other options are there other than passwords to keep my account safe. And really the best tool, probably more important than a strong password, is two-factor authentication when it is an option. It is based on the platform, right? The platform determines if it's allowed or not. And when I talk about two-factor authentication, it's code separate from your password that's sent to you via another channel, typically your phone or a mobile device, and make sure that it's you. And make sure that you are the person actually trying to sign in. And if someone does gain access to your password, then they won't have that two-factor authentication code, and even though they know the password, they can't get in. So typically, that code is sent via SMS, like a text message to your phone. But there's also authenticator apps that will give you two-factor codes. And that's becoming more important now because recently NetSuite and a few other platforms have decided to no longer support SMS or text message two-factor authentication codes. So the authenticator apps, typically when you are setting up two-factor authentication, it'll give you a QR code. And you open your authenticator app. I like to use Google Authenticator. And you scan the QR code and you give it a name, like NetSuite or Google or whatever. And that's it. Now, every time you need a two-factor code, you just go into the Authenticator app, and it's there, and it refreshes every 20 seconds or so. And you have your code without needing to receive a text message. So that is extremely important that you're utilizing that when you can. Not every platform, every website allows that, but when it is possible, that is extremely important that you do that. So now that we've learned about how to make strong passwords, how to remember them, the tools that you have at your disposal, and some of the options with two-factor authentication, let's answer a few questions, and then we'll get into Module 3.